I feel like I've done some of you a disservice because on this channel I often preach reducing errors as the fastest way to level up, which I still believe in. But because I preach that so often, a lot of you think I'm against offense, which I'm definitely not. So one of the most common ways that I talk about playing simple high percentage tennis is when you're at the baseline, just playing high cross court. We know the net is a little bit lower, the court is a little bit longer, and you're not changing directions. Going cross court is awesome. But a well-timed down the line shot is also super important. If you only go cross court at a certain level and everyone knows what you're doing, that's not going to be very effective. And the main reason why I'm against a lot of players going down the line is they go down the line at the wrong moments. And so today I'm going to give you my 3 criteria for hitting a great offensive shot down the line. So the first 2 things we're looking for when attempting an offensive down the line shot is our own court position. So number 1, I'm going to want you close to the baseline, and depending on your level, maybe even further inside. So let's say I was a 5-5 player, maybe I could be 1 step behind the baseline for an offensive shot. If I'm a 3-0 player, I might want to be 5-6 feet inside, but we want to be up in the court because we're trying to rush our opponent and play offense. We cannot hurt our opponent when we're behind the baseline. So if we're back here, I pretty much always recommend a high cross court shot, but once we get closer to the baseline and depending on your level, even farther inside, that gives us a green light. The second criteria that we have to pay attention to is where we are width-wise in the court. So as long as we are inside the single sideline, I think it's an okay time to try an offensive shot down the line. Once we start getting wider and wider out here, our court position is such that if we don't execute the shot perfectly, we're gonna have to run all the way across the court to get that next ball. So the first 2 things have to do solely with our position. Are we inside the baseline and are we inside the singles court? The third thing we have to pay attention to when going down the line offensively is where's our opponent. So if there's not an opening, if they're standing in the middle of the court and we're trying to get beat down the line here, that's not going to work no matter how well you hit it, no matter how far up in the baseline you are, you're still going to allow them the chance to come over and then open you up with a cross-court shot, which is high percentage. So you have to make sure there's an opening, or you have to be very, very convinced that your downline ground stroke is going to their weaker side. So even if there wasn't an opening, if the player over here had just a horrendous backhand and you wanted to take it down the line, that makes some sense as long as you're inside the baseline and inside the singles court. I would allow that as well. So there either needs to be an opening or a huge weakness from your opponent. So I'm going to show you a few examples from the recent ITA National Indoors D1 Men. It's my Duke team against San Diego, but I want you to see when these players decide to stay simple and solid cross court and when they see the opportunity to go offensively down the line. All right, so let's take a look here. We got San Diego on the near side, Duke on the far side. Just pay attention to how balanced these guys are, and they're just hitting to huge margins cross court. They're not always deep. They're not always amazing shots, but these guys are so solid. And also, they go down the line like there sometimes just as a positional change. It's not offensive, which is not really what we're talking about. They're just trying to switch up the diagonal of the court and maybe get their opponent moving. And at their level, they can go down the line like that, no problem. That backhand right there is what we're talking about. Inside the baseline, inside the singles line, and he had an opening, which made it a great time to be aggressive. Now, these rallies are incredibly long, and I want to remind you, these are highlights. This is not what every single point looks like. Otherwise, these guys would be cramping up at like 3-3 in the first set. But you can see they're both digging in, cross court, huge margins, even though they're incredibly skilled players. And yes, they sprinkle in these down the lines, but they are positional, not offensive. And because they don't really miss often, going down the line like this is not a problem as long as you're fast enough to recover. Both guys have beautiful backhands, nice and balanced. And again, when someone slices, it's also very difficult to go down the line because you have to hit up on the ball. You're not going to be able to hit as fast. More positional lines, huge targets through the middle. That's why these guys are good players. They get it. That's a good opening backhand. Now he's way inside the baseline, and that makes it an awesome time to hit that offensive down the line winner. Now let's take a look here at a point where it maybe doesn't make sense to go down the line. So they both kind of grind it out, but you're going to see we need the 3 requirements: inside the baseline, inside the single sideline, and an opening. And right here, you're going to see he's going to try a forehand inside in, fading away behind the baseline right here, but that leaves him exposed to this forehand cross court. And so when one of those 3 criteria is missing, it makes it hard to execute that down the line on a consistent basis. Just check out here. This is a screenshot from earlier where he decided to go cross court. He's inside the baseline, inside the singles line, but there's no opening. And you can see the subtle difference. This is one where he hit the winner on, and he's got an extra yard of space. So that's something that he's very, very aware of. So hopefully this gave you something to think about. Yes, I'm still about playing simple, high percentage, smart tennis, reducing errors, but you do need to go down the line offensively sometimes, and these are my 3 parameters. So if you keep this in mind, sprinkle this in throughout your match, you'll be able to play a little bit of offense while still keeping the errors down and winning more matches.